From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live, your number one stream for the uncanny, the weird, and the unexplained. Good evening, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever in the world you are, and welcome to the show. This is Eerie's Vault Live, and I am your host, Eerie. We'll be opening up the phone lines shortly, so if you want to be on the show, I'll tell you how to do that in just a moment. But first, let's begin with a shout out to my patrons, shall we? Adam Mitchell, Baroque Lobster, Buster Piles, International Man of Underpants, Farson's Finest, International Man of Pot Noodles, Todd Van Voris, Greg Russell, E.J. Osborne, Emu Cat, Andrew Dewey, Cat Man, Keith Say, Pamela Peffer, Pill Collins, Aaron Osborne, Amanda McNeil and Ben Hurl, Chris Slee, Craig McClellan, Ginger Ninja, Heather Maund Jones, Iron Bug. It's me, Matt Carter, Melv, Natalie Leach, Paul Redruth, got to say this next one slowly, Rudolph Hooker, yes, Sawboss, Vincent Hegeland, Wayne Stedman, and Zach T. Thank you all for joining the Patreon. It is great to see just so much interest out there. It really is. I hope everyone's had a good week and is having or is about to have a good weekend. Let's see who's in the chat this evening, shall we? We've got Purple Pipkin. Good evening. Baby with a Laser is here. Hi, Baby with a Laser. Stephen Truth Seeker. Hello, Stephen. Tools. Hello, Tools. And a lovely picture of a doggy there. WM Steadbot says evening all, and I say evening back to you. Paul Williams, good evening. Farson's Finest says hello, Mon Sherry Bakewell. Yes, indeed. Cryptids Britannia is here. Good evening, everyone, on this rather wet and miserable day. At least it is up here in the north. Yes, it is like that in the north, isn't it? Welcome. Aching Plums is with us. Harry Webb's here as well. Good evening to you both. Who else do we have? Celeste says hello to all fellow Eeries. So hello to you as well. Thank you for joining us. Theme Queen UK is here. Hello, Theme Queen. Welcome to the show. Greg is also with us. Says afternoon from LA. Good afternoon, LA, Greg. Have I missed anybody out? Liz Ace. Hello, Liz. David Williams is here as well. Who else have we got? Darren Jump. Gosh, it's busy tonight, isn't it? All of you, welcome. Welcome to the show. And here's a bit of eerie news. That's right. So, a remarkable fossil discovery out of Mongolia is changing the way paleontologists think about dome-headed dinosaurs. Yes, scientists have identified a new species, which I'm going to pronounce, or at least attempt to pronounce, Zavacephalia rinpoche, that lived roughly 108 million years ago. Rinpoche, or Rinpoche, of course, somewhere in Mongolia, isn't it? That makes it the oldest known member of this dinosaur group. Those weird plant-eating dinosaurs with the really thick sort of bald man heads, you know, the one that rams the car in Jurassic Park. That's that one. And until now, the earliest examples of these were believed to be much younger, but this one pushes their timeline back by tens of millions of years. Now, despite it being a relative of later giants with skull domes up to 25 centimetres thick, this animal was actually pretty small, and it was no longer than a modern turkey, weighing in at about 20 pounds, they think. Now, what makes this fossil extraordinary is its completeness. Most dinosaur remains of this kind are little more than isolated skull caps here and there, but the paleontologists uncovered not only the distinctive dome, but also portions of the limbs and the hips and the shoulders, and even a tail reinforced by stiffened tendons. This level of preservation provides a much clearer picture of the animal's anatomy and lifestyle. The robust build of the tail suggests an agility and balance, whilst the skull itself shows that the domed structure formed pretty early in the life cycle. That finding challenges the old idea that the domes were strictly for headbutting contests between fully grown males, and instead the presence of the dome in younger individuals suggests that it might also have served as a visual display or some sort of signal to others in the herd, probably with sunlight glinting off their bald patch in the distance. The discovery also adds weight to the idea that Asia was a crucial centre for these kind of dinosaurs. These animals would later spread across what is now North America, but this new model suggests that their story begins in Mongolia's Cretaceous landscapes. Researchers say this has not only rewritten the evolutionary timeline for these dome-headed dinosaurs, but it also underscores how little we still know. For every famous fossil species like Triceratops or Tyrannosaurus, there are a dozen of smaller, stranger creatures that help fill in the evolutionary puzzle. And in the case of Zavacephali Rinpoche, however you want to pronounce it, its skull dome tells us that these adaptations arose much earlier than expected. So these dinosaurs are more complex than we had thought. The James Webb Space Telescope has just given us our first of its kind glimpse into a cosmic feeding frenzy of sorts. Black holes quietly devouring stars and galaxies shrouded by dust. Previously, most tidal disruption events, where a star gets too close and is torn apart by gravity and forms a hot accretion disk around the black hole, were spotted in wavelengths just like the visible ultraviolet or X-ray light, but a lot of those signals get blocked if the galaxy is dusty. The James Webb now, using infrared vision, can peek through that veil of dust. Researchers followed up on a set of 12 probable TDEs that had shown up in earlier infrared surveys. Of those, 4 were observed closely with the telescope, and it detected infrared emissions from atoms stripped of electrons by intense X-ray and UV radiation. The clear signature that a black hole is doing its thing, ripping a star apart. Even more compelling was evidence of silicate dust. The shredded star's light is absorbed by the surrounding dust and then re-emitted in the infrared, giving a delayed sort of glowing echo of violence, as it were. This opens up a new window into how black holes grow and interact with their environments. And if these TDE events happen just as often in dusty, obscured galaxies as they do in dust-clear ones, then loads of them went unnoticed before because the light was just hidden by all the dust. The James Webb Telescope's ability to catch the infrared afterglow means that astronomers can begin counting more of these hidden events, and that'll help answer questions like, how often do dormant black holes sort of, well, wake up, I suppose, and what kinds of galaxies host them, and how much mass do they accumulate in these dramatic, star-devouring episodes? Astronomers are now seriously considering the idea that wandering space rocks, interstellar objects flung out from other star systems, could actually help kickstart planet formation around younger stars. A recent study by Professor Suzanne Falzner introduces the idea that these interstellar objects could act as seeds in protoplanetary disks, helping overcome a key hurdle in how planets form. Normally, dusty disks around young stars grow via accretion, as we've just mentioned. Tiny particles collide and stick, and gradually they form larger and larger bodies. But once they reach boulder size, well, collisions tend to cause bouncing or sort of fragmentation, which makes their further growth just a bit more difficult. Folsner's model suggests that when a sufficiently large interstellar object, like the Atlas thing that we spoke about last week, is captured by the protoplanetary disk, it can provide a solid mass onto which dust and gas can more easily accumulate, helping to sort of leapfrog past the problem of the mass being too small to sustain itself, as it were. The disks around massive stars don't last long, in the scheme of things that is, maybe a couple of million years, and that's often not enough time to form a planet. But if these interstellar objects are swept into the disk early, they can accelerate it. And discoveries like the 3I Atlas, one of the very few confirmed interstellar visitors known, its detection suggests that these interstellar wayfarers might be more common than previously assumed, increasing the odds that young stellar systems do capture them. Indeed, Avi Loeb is still on the track of this could be an alien ship as well, which you never know, do you? I keep watching YouTube and the news to see if this thing's suddenly sprouted wings and a jet flame or something, but I do have the feeling it's just going to be another rock, if I'm honest with you. And it might sound like science fiction, but the extinct dodo bird is one big step closer to waking, wading, and waddling again. A biotech company called Colossal Biosciences has just announced a major breakthrough in their efforts to resurrect the dodo, extinct since the 1660s through advanced gene editing. What they've done is they've grown pigeon primordial germ cells, yes, you heard that right, which they refer to as PGCs, in the lab, and the precursors to sperm and eggs, essentially, from Nicobar pigeons, the dodo's closest living relative. And it's a crucial technical milestone because birds cannot be cloned in the same way that mammals are, so working via germ cells is the pathway forward, as it were. It's an ambitious plan, and once they've got functional germ cells, the team aims to edit them with dodo DNA-based traits, characteristics that define how those birds looked and how they behaved and lived, and then implant them into gene-edited chickens acting as surrogate hosts. Over time, these modifications could lead to birds that are genetically and physically similar enough to qualify as dodos for rewilding purposes. Colossal estimates that under the best circumstances, the first dodo-like birds could be realized in about 5 to 7 years, rather than being decades away. Of course, there are big scientific and ethical and ecological and, let's face it, practical and financial hurdles to pass, aren't they? For one thing, editing the DNA of birds to recreate lost traits is going to be pretty complex, isn't it? We don't have a full picture of how dodo genes interacted in their native environment, nor, in fact, all the genes responsible for its unique body shape and the stubby wings and its behaviour and its size. There's also debate about whether such de-extinction efforts might distract from protecting species that are currently alive and endangered. Why look after them if you can just bring them back? Some biologists caution that a bird engineered to look and act like a dodo may never fully replicate what was lost, and there's the matter of where it could safely live. Mauritius, its former home, is one possibility, of course, but only in rat-free zones and after some careful ecosystem planning as well. Still, it's a pretty much a wow moment in genetics, isn't it? And conservation, of course. The achievement of cultured PGCs from a pigeon relative isn't just about the dodos, though. It opens doors for advanced avian conservation tools, doesn't it? It suggests that in the not-so-distant future, we might be able to resurrect more species, whilst also giving a boost to conservation for those that are endangered. let's say. What do you guys wish would come back? I seem to remember hearing this must be last year or the year before. God, Lord knows it's going quickly, folks. These days, possibly a couple of years ago, was it called Pleistocene Park or something? Somebody in the chat must ring a bell with someone. There was some talk of rewilding mammoths and megafauna in, gosh, I think it might have been the Russian tundra or something like that, whereby it was Forrest Galante, I'm sure it was, or he was talking about it on some Joe Rogan thing, I believe. Pleistocene Park, it rings a bell. What's your thoughts on rewilding and all this genetic editing and mixing of species and messing with DNA? What do you think about that one? I'm not so sure, because I remember the ITV series Chimera with the half monkey, half man thing that scared several years off me, let's put it that way. I can't say those words on air, but yes, it scared me to pieces, did that. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. I noticed someone said, Baby with a Laser says, I don't see the point in it. It's just an ego boost for boffins. I don't see the point in bringing back the species of the dodo, other than to say you can. And I suppose things are gateways to other things, aren't they? It'll be amazing to see like the megatherium wandering around again, or those giant sloths, which they do reckon, and by they, that's the ethereal they, but they do reckon that Patagonia is still home to gigantic sloths. And in fact, that might be another Forrest Galante thing. We should get Forrest on the show. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? That'd be very good, actually. Yes, I think Patagonia is said to have giant sloths still knocking around. Greg says there was a discovery in permafrost, a nematode found in the Siberian permafrost, dated to be about 46,000 years old, and they brought it back to life. Goodness me. That permafrost's dangerous, isn't it? We all remember The Thing, don't we? We all saw that. Paul Williams says it would be good if they could bring back common sense. Yes, that would help as well, wouldn't it? Stephen Truthseeker thinks it's playing God. And Aching Plums wishes that flares would come back. You have free will. You can wear flares if you want. Don't you worry. Farson's thinking about eating pot noodles in his Dodo-flavoured pot noodle. I wonder if they just taste like chicken. I don't know what pigeon tastes like, so I'm not particularly into that, I don't think. But yes, and Liz says, I agree about Chimera. It was terrifying. Yes, and sat here in this remote location in the north with all that woodland that I can see from my window. I kind of wish I hadn't mentioned that thing now. Squirrel is nice, says Farson's Finest. I will take your word for that. I will. Baby with a Laser said dodos were just shot for fun. They had no predators, so it made them an easy target. Yes, I imagine. I think I've heard that before, actually, that it was just sort of sporting thing. And we do hunt species too, near extinction or extinction, don't we? And it's just part of what happens, I suppose. But I guess if you're going to bring them back, how do you prioritise which ones you would bring back? And I suppose that is led by, well, which ones do we think we can bring back? I've lost count of how many times I've seen a headline that says, almost complete mammoth found in Siberian frost. It had teeth and hair and everything. And you feel like you're moments away from it being alive and walking around again. But I really wonder how far away we are from that. But I really would like to see some of the megafauna. Maybe not the saber-toothed tigers and all that kind of thing. But then you see, you've got to not only rewild a species, but you've got to rewild an ecosystem, and all of those things lived together. All those old books, you know, the Megatherium and the big saber-toothed cats and all those big hairy furry sort of dinosaur things, they all lived in an ecosystem, didn't they? So bringing one back without the other may also have its problems as well. We have issues with the deer, don't we? Deer are cold in the States with hunting permits and deer season keeping the herd down. And, well, what do you do against a herd of Megatherium that keeps eating your rhododendrons? I don't think you're going to have much choice about letting them do it or not, are you? Unless you make giant bear mats. Have you seen those? Have you seen those bear mats that are electric mats on your doorstep? The bear walks up casually and just gets a shock of its life and runs away. They'd have to be big mats, though, for a Megatherium, I think. Stephen says whales' bones have been found inside mountains. They have, actually, yes, and in deserts and strange places like that, which, of course, means at some point the oceans were there, weren't they? The whale is a strange creature, I think. A very odd thing. Something that enormous, that isn't a predator, is still around. It's enormous, right? It's not a predator, but giant predators that did exist supposedly don't anymore. Hasn't a new species of coelacanth been found recently? I think I read that as well this week. The ocean, as you can probably tell from the video that I just released actually this evening, the ocean is unexplored. There are mysteries down there, more mysteries than you can shake a piece of seaweed at, I would think. It's got to be something down there that survived. How can you be an apex predator in the water and still not be an apex predator when everything else, everything that we have found, let's say, would appear to be much smaller than these gigantic reptilian monsters that lived in the ocean? Why wouldn't they still be there? It makes no sense. On land, yeah, okay, big catastrophic, cataclysmic events, you know, if a meteor lands on your head and you're a Tyrannosaurus, you're going to probably pass away, aren't you? But would the effects of deep sea creatures, would it be the same effect on them? I don't know. I'm not really much of a swimmer, and I do have thalassophobia, so if I cannot see the bottom of the water I am in, I am not staying in that water, I have to say. Yes, Farson's Finest says, goddamn mammoths going through my bins again. It'd be terrible, wouldn't it? But Tyrannosaurus footprints in my garden again. What are the council going to do about it? And Stephen says, I don't fancy having to chase off a T-Rex from my backyard. No, neither do I. I think they can rather just do whatever they want. Can't they, really? At that size, yes. But with those arms, I don't know. What were the arms for? What was the point? I love Dinosaur. I love thinking about dinosaurs and things. And I actually quite like how a lot of them have, their designs are changing over and over time. You know, now they've got feathers and stuff like that, haven't they? What was that? There was some dinosaur in Crystal Palace, I think. Some statue of a dinosaur which has got an enormous... it's either that it's got an enormous horn on its nose in this statue reconstruction, or it's got an enormous thumb horn, and it must be the other way around, actually. It's got an enormous thumb horn, and it was supposed to be its nose horn because they'd got the skeleton mixed up or something like that. I may be waffling there, I'm not sure, but somebody, it's in Crystal Palace, I'm sure. I don't want to do that thing where you end up Googling stuff all the time. So what I'm going to do is move on from this topic. Iguanodon. There you go, Darren. Well done. The Iguanodon. Now, which way round was it? That's my next question. Which way around was it? And I remember having books and books and books on, and I memorized all their names, you know, all the dinosaurs' names, the ones with the Dimetrodon with the fin on their back. I thought they were fantastic. My favorite was the Triceratops. I loved those things. I don't know why. They were just cool, weren't they? So there's a topic for you tonight. What's your favorite dinosaur and why? Let's do that. If you could have 5 dinosaurs around for tea, which ones would they be? Let's do that sort of thing. It depends how much room you have in the parlour, doesn't it? Of course, to bring them. Pterodactyls, yes, pterodactyl. Yeah, they were impressive, weren't they? But I like well, I've said it, the Megatherium. There's something about those giant sloths and those big, almost horse-like things. There were loads of them, weren't there? I remember I can picture it in my head, a particular page in a book about dinosaurs. But anyway, nevertheless, here's how to take part in tonight's show. To take part in tonight's show, there are a number of options. You can send a message on WhatsApp, giving a brief outline of what it is you want to discuss, and then wait for my call back. Alternatively, for UK residents, you can call direct on 0141 673 3743 to join the call queue and get through to the live show. And for listeners in the US, you can also call on 929 673 3743. That's 929 Mr. Eerie. That's a New York City number. And if you're too shy to call, then you can always email eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story or your theory, whatever it is you want to talk about, and I can read it out for you on air and state. Remember, this is your show, and I am waiting for your call. Strange encounters, theories about the paranormal, questions about some of the cases I've covered on the channel, whatever it is, as long as it's weird, I want to hear it. Call now to be on Eerie's Vault Live. This is Eerie's Vault Live, and I am your host, Leon Eerie, and this is your #1 stream for the weird, the strange, and the unexplained. Yes, it is, and as you can tell, I've been messing with bumpers and stings today. Now, I do have a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Can you hear me?
I can. Could you hear me?
I certainly can. Good evening, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Wow.
So what do you want to tell us or ask us about?
Well, I messaged you in the week about something I saw in the sky a year ago. It was very interesting and intriguing to me. So I live in Staffordshire. I've always loved photography, astronomy, and UFO stories since I was a child. The usual sort of artistic child stuff, reading the 14 Times, staring into the sky at night, reading books like Communion. However, I've kind of grown more skeptical about UFOs, primarily because, people have had smartphones for the longest time. They've all got great cameras, yet we still don't see any clear photos. Now, the irony here is, of course, that what I saw, I didn't capture any photos of. One of those things. It was a Sunday night. It was about 10:30, late August last year. I went outside with my 12-year-old daughter to watch the Perseids, the meteor showers. So, after about 30 minutes, we were about to give up. When around about 11 o'clock, my daughter spotted something and said, what's that then? And she pointed up, and I looked up, and for all the world, I thought it was a carrier bag caught in the wind. A silent V-shaped object appears, though. Rounded edges, moving steadily from east to west. Translucent milky glow, and there was 4 distinct bright spots, 2 on each side of the V. And like I say, I thought it was a plastic bag in the sky. But it kept its shape, and then it just glided over the trees ahead of us. Now, I'd estimate that at around 200 to 300 feet, it was probably about 30 feet wide. So, the thing is here, I finally saw something, and I really don't believe it was an alien craft. which is massively disappointing, as you might imagine.
And where was this again? Sorry, just where put me in the picture of where this was.
So in Staffordshire, so in Stafford itself. So, staring at the night sky, clear sky, beautiful clear, east to west, gliding silently, not a single murmur of sound. And, on a clear night you can hear jets when they travel over 20,000 feet or whatever. Yeah, and very well defined, a sort of pale milky blue glow to the actual craft with those 4 distinct bright spots. I can only assume some kind of military drone. Aerogel, perhaps. It would explain the blue milky glow, perhaps.
I see. So it appeared to be sort of solid then, rather than a fluid outline?
Well, no, it had a solid defined outline, definitely. A sort of a V shape with sort of rounded bow and the rounded ends of the V's. It was definitely solid, but it felt like it was translucent. There was nothing to see through it, but for all the world, you would think it was a milky kind of translucency colour that felt like it was sort of semi-transparent, but might be, might not be. Who knows?
Sure.
Absolutely silent.
And you don't get the feeling that it was alien as such.
I would absolutely adore for it to be alien, but sadly not. It certainly scared us enough to run inside to tell my wife, who immediately thought we'd both concocted a story and was completely sceptical. But since then, you keep looking at the sky and you keep looking out at night, and I've since actually set up a camera to monitor the sky that I looked at religiously for the following 3 weeks and have since sort of given up on altogether. But yeah, and the thing is, of course, that I now realise perhaps why people don't take photos of these things, because it was the last thing on my mind to actually take a photo.
I imagine, yeah. And the other thing as well, the concept of everybody's got a phone camera now. I mean, that's a fine concept, but just getting the phone out, unlocking it, finding the camera app and holding the camera up, that can be enough time for something to vanish.
Well, the irony was I didn't even take a camera out because we were looking for shooting stars, and the chances of seeing a shooting star in taking a photo of it in any kind of real time was pretty crazy to me. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, always wanted to see something, finally saw something, and sadly the sceptical side of me thinks probably military craft. It would be lovely to think it wasn't, but probably. And I think there's probably something going on. Oh, sorry.
No, you continue. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. No, I think there's probably something to be said about a lot of these sightings being either experimental craft or secret craft. When you look at the profile of the stealth bomber, for example, and in the 80s people were seeing sort of saucer-shaped UFOs. But if you see a stealth bomber front on, it has the profile of a disc with a little bump. So there's a potential for all of these things to be misreported. And of course, I've told a few people about this, and most of them go, it's probably a cloud. It was probably the moon. It was probably a star. And you just think, no, honestly.
You know the difference.
Yeah.
I think that the possibility of a lot of UFO sightings being misreported or rather misidentified drones or something, I think it's quite high, particularly, the further and further we get through in our sort of technological development. Did you see the debacle of the drones in America, where there were just thousands of drones?
I certainly did, and clearly they were some kind of traditional, perhaps prop-driven drone-style things, just on a very large scale. And that's probably what the strange thing is about this. While I say drone, clearly not a drone that perhaps, in the traditional sense of 4 rotors on the corner of a big thing that goes into the sky. And having done a little bit of research on these things, there's talk of all of these, electrostatically driven spy plane style things that generate electricity by flying high during the day and then at night time come down low to take photographs. But there's nothing particularly conclusive there. And then when you look at those cases in America, there was clearly something happening in America at that time that meant they had to do this. And I think there was talk, if I remember correctly, there was talk about them looking for radioactive materials.
Yes. Whether that was true or not is another matter, isn't it, of course?
Absolutely. But I doubt little green men would want to fly on something with propellers.
No.
It's all a bit Spitfire.
Yeah, it's a little bit, what's the word? It's not quite as advanced as you'd expect, is it, really?
Archaic.
Yes, that's the word. That's the word. Yeah, and the aerogel thing. So, exotic materials and different metals and all our material science and what we're able to achieve with it. What do you think of the concept of the crafts are not necessarily UFOs, but the materials they are made from are exotic materials?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's certainly something that's crossed my mind before about very rapid advances in technologies from the 1950s to 75 years later today. And when you look at things like aerogel, you look at all these other sort of semi-exotic materials like superconductors and even just microprocessors. You look at us going from the transistor to chips now that are 1 million times more powerful, or 1 billion times more powerful than they were in the 70s.
Yes.
And you think that's an awful lot of research to be done to advance quite so quickly. When you consider, for example, that, I think I saw somebody online recently had created a web server from a vape pen. And you think, good grief, there's a microprocessor inside a vape that's more powerful than the home computers we had in the 80s.
Wow.
You've got to wonder, haven't you? But certainly when we talk about the aerogel aspect of this, the only reason I think aerogel wasn't because of the silence or because of the size, just that very traditional milky blue glow that you see with aerogel when you see it as a material. So that may just have been painted blue. Who knows? But it certainly had that translucency to it. And I think, we could be talking about man-made objects, but perhaps with assistance from elsewhere.
Yes, and it's one of the arguments, isn't it, for, as you say, our rapid, not only technological advance, but our own rapid advance in general. There's some speculation of a bit of genetic manipulation as well, somewhere back in the Stone Age, perhaps, or somewhere just before we discovered fire.
Well, you can go one of two ways with those ones, can't you? You can either go to there was a previous civilization that was advanced and some of them lived, or aliens came down and tinkered with the Neanderthals' DNA.
That's the one.
So there's plenty of conspiracies on that side, isn't there?
And there are conspiracies all over. If you look for them, you don't have to look too hard, do you?
It's just a shame that some of them end up turning out to be true. So who knows? UFOs, Roswell.
Yeah,
maybe right.
All that. Our own, of course, the Berwyn Mountains and, what's that very famous one called in the UK? Do you know, I've been reading about it today.
The RAF base.
Rendlesham. That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
Although that does seem a little bit curious, doesn't it, Rendlesham, in reality?
It does. And I was speaking to a chap, I was messaging a chap today, who I shall refer to as Mr. M, who's raised the possibility that the craft was actually summoned by people at the base rather than it just appearing. It was actually summoned as part of an experiment.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we hear quite a lot about this, don't we? There was a lot of that in the sort of 70s and 80s about people who could stand on the top of remote Welsh mountains and summon alien craft. And wasn't... who was the chap that ended up dying with radiation burns who was said to have wandered into the wilderness in America?
Oh, gosh.
Is that Adamski?
Zygmunt. Zygmunt, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you've got all these sort of cases of people being able to spontaneously manifest UFOs and alien craft. And I think, I mean, there has to be a grain of truth in some of this. And certainly when you go back in time and you sort of consider, I mean, I mentioned communion earlier on, which as a child, it was, it probably terrified me and I had to sleep with the light on for quite some time. However, you look at the tale of that, and then you sort of hear of like pixies and dwarves and elves and things going back in history.
Yeah. Is it all the
Fairy
same?
circles and all these things. Yes, are these the same thing? And yeah, who can tell? Who can tell? But there's certainly a lot of similarities in all of these things.
There certainly are, and of course not only in locations but across the world, in fact, and it does make you wonder if what we refer to as high strangeness is an intelligence appearing to us in different ways.
So what do you mean there exactly when you talk about high intelligence?
Sorry, an intelligence. So as in terms of it's the same. So fairy sightings and winged creatures and UFOs, ghosts even, are all potentially part of the same intelligence or being, as it were, which is either perceived by us in different ways, and therefore we have different ways of talking about it, or it presents itself to us in different ways.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because if you think about a lot of these sort of paranormal phenomena, they also tie into some of the other sort of esoteric edge theories, like Elon Musk saying he's 99.9% certain, or whatever percentage he gave, that we're living in a simulation.
Yes.
At which point you can tie ghosts back to being glitches in the so-called Matrix, I guess.
Yes.
And that's just sort of, all of these new theories sort of tie to the old theories, and you could very quickly get yourself tied up in knots and have a large corkboard with photographs and red strings tying everything together. You could probably spend your life sort of driving yourself a little bit crazy with all of this, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, you absolutely could, and I think that's a difference between. It's the question that I ask myself is, do we really need an answer, or is it enough just to continue exploring?
Well, I think a lot of us would actually be quite sad if we did find out the answer, I guess. Part of the fun is in sort of looking at all of these things, and certainly, having read the Fortean Times for years and being attracted to the "it happened to me" section quite a lot of the time. You do think that you can look at some of them and think, yes, somebody was going through something terrible in their lives, and this happened. And then there are some where you go, that's clearly made up. And then there are others that are, that's quite interesting. And certainly some of those sort of ghost stories you hear of people going into buildings and feeling a presence and seeing shadow people and things like that. You can sort of tie some of that in itself back to sort of sleep paralysis and those sorts of things. So I think we've got a mix of potential reality with high technology, either of our own making or someone else's making. You've got physiology and the brain being the brain. And then you have got that sort of that tiny sliver at the end of that fits into the clear uncategorizable category that just is unknown.
Yeah, and may always be unknown until perhaps, a person passes over into whatever it might be, and then maybe then we find out, and maybe we then try and come back and tell people, and that's what it all is.
You never know, and you read stories about sort of a lot of the sort of Timothy Leary sort of stuff about things like what's it called, DMT.
Yes.
And those sorts of experiences where people have a very similar experience that is, more or less the same thing tailored to them, and that starts then leading to those sorts of questions about, what is beyond the veil.
Yeah.
And but I doubt Aerogel drones are beyond the veil. That's all I can say.
They were very much above your head, weren't they? Yes.
Indeed they were.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for your call. What a fantastic call to start off the show. I didn't catch your name. If you don't want to give it, that's fine.
John.
John, I have to say, John, thank you ever so much for your call. I've enjoyed talking to you a great deal. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Okay. Good night. Well, ladies and gents, that's how easy it is, you see. That's how easy it is. You can call up and even if you've not got a story, we can shoot the breeze about it. I love thinking about these things, and I love actually considering all the options and asking questions and getting answers. That's what I love about this show. Thank you, John. I really enjoyed that. Yes, and that will be the 0141 number as well, of course, in use there. There is a number for people in the US. Having looked at my analytics, it seems that sort of 50-50 of my viewership is UK and US. And I've had a couple of messages saying, how can I call in if I don't have WhatsApp and I'm in the US? So you have a US number now. There you go. See how I provide for you. There you go. We've got a couple of things through on WhatsApp here. Now, I must repeat here that I do use a default timer so that messages disappear on the WhatsApp within 24 hours unless I see them. And I can see I've probably got 2 or 3 messages here that have deleted and have vanished. So apologies for not responding to you, but I tend to only look at the WhatsApp every now and then for the show. And I've got a couple of videos by the looks of it, some videos here that were sent and have been deleted and all sorts. So I'm very sorry. If you've tried to get hold of me this week, as in since Friday, then please do try again tonight, because that's when I will see your messages. Okay. It doesn't tell me who the names are either, you see. The case of the disappearing messages. Yes. Is that a drunk fish in the... is that a drunk fish emoji? I've never seen that before in my life. We'll head over to the Eeries Vault inbox then, because as you know, you can email eeriesvault.com. And you may recall Ian with his poem from last week, who sent me another rhyme, a fun rhyme about how a modern-day werewolf encounter might go. So we'll read this out for you here. It's titled Wolfman. Neath full white moon from Wolfsbane bloom, there came a gloomy cry. This haunting tune of doom and tomb made Tom assume he'd die. At first a growl, and then a howl, and what prowled beyond his sight? The noise had fouled the evening's cowl, and scared an owl to flight. As if a hound was gaining ground somewhere around the trees, these kinds of sounds can make hearts pound, and blood's been found to freeze. And though the thud of feet on mud said likelihood a dog, still there Tom stood, scared, in the woods, in scuds of misty fog. But who'd have guessed a man, quite stressed, would crest atop the hill, whose vest did rest and soon undressed, and bare of chest fell still. And then with a moan, a snout was grown, while other bones constricted, and just as was shown in films he'd known, or Twilight Zone depicted. Like Wolfman lore from days of yore, claws tore through fingertips, then paused to floor down on all fours, teeth poured from a jaw through lips. And with fire grew, transition through, its blue eyes flew Tom's away, to seek a clue, a crew of view, and if Tom knew what to say. Tom felt a chill, a deadly thrill, his heart stood still a while. But soon Wolf's will seemed to distill, and was to kill its style. It had not leapt or even crept, just kept Tom in its eye. A slight misstep would be inept. It said, accept or die. This lycanthrope was out to scope how modern dopes react. How would Tom cope with this tightrope? His only hope was tact. And thinking through what best to do, Tom soon came to his sense, where once was a dew, a scream or two might now construe offence. And should Tom address its indifferentness, and call it a pest or a clown, or treat it as guest, this man cross-dressed with no thoughtless pronoun. A quick brainstorm, then Tom got warm. How he'd perform its test. Accept the norm that folks transform to which form suits them best. A gypsy spell or a silver shell could mean death knell incurred, and now Tom could tell how to do well. Just yell all the right words. Best not hold with thoughts of old, be controlled by the past. Forget what's told in books, once sold, don't scold it, an outcast. Tom didn't care to curse and swear, turn to the air his nose, became aware it's wrong to stare at men who wear wolf's clothes. He'd toe the line, not undermine, so opined joyously, and if you define yourself lupine or canine, it's fine by me. The tension eased with wolf appeased, so pleased it wagged its tail. Its test not breezed. With expertise he teased a pass from fail, so off Tom skipped, or more likely slipped, his hat tipped in good night, and though equipped with puns and quips, to stay tight-lipped felt right. There you go. All you've got to do if you're faced with a werewolf is just talk to it nicely. There we go. Thank you, Ian, for that one. Yes, I could just picture that as we go. And well done for getting lycanthrope into that, by the way. That was very good, I have to say. We have this from Ian now, who says, this is from Ian, who says, I have a few recounts to share in time. Two of them are quite lengthy, and I need to find a diary that we were written in at the time, in the late 90s, to remind me of certain aspects. But in the meantime, I'd like to share a quick one. If you want to hear, I always want to hear. Of course I do. In 1995, I was a young man. I'm 52 now, he says, working shifts at a print finishers on an industrial estate in Accrington. The shift I was working on finished at midnight, and a few of us finished at that time. I'd said I'd walk one of the other workers home because it was only slightly out of my way, and she was a she, and it meant she'd be walking through the back of the factories alone, in front of the landfill and coming out near the cricket club in the dark. As I was without a care all that year, my fault, naughty boy, he says, it was the only thing to do. It was after we left the back end of the estate and entered the single-file dirt path running parallel to and below the tip. This was a landfill, which was 100 yards-ish to our right-hand side, that as we were talking and watching our footing along the path, we both noticed a bright pink-purple laser bolt come down on our right-hand side in the sky at about 45 degrees and enter or terminate on the tip. It was obvious it landed in the landfill, even though we couldn't see in. We were below it, you see, and as all the sleeping gulls suddenly woke and went through their commotions and didn't settle for a minute or two, it was obvious something had landed. Now, we both looked at each other in disbelief, and it was a very strange feeling of unreality about it, as we confirmed we had both seen it, and what we had seen, and that the gulls were definitely responding to whatever it was that had landed. This spooked the girl, and I wouldn't have thought she was the type to be spooked, because she was very down-to-earth, sort of no-messing sort of person, in that Lancashire lass sort of way. Now, I've tried to reason that it might have been some sort of a meteorite with a chemical composition to make that colour, but, I've never seen anything like it, or the steady, solid beam that it produced, and I consider it fortunate not to have hit any buildings, actually, as if it was just landing and terminating in the tip, as I say. I have thought in passing, what if it was intended for the tip? That is to say, what if it was there to take readings or gather data on what we have been consuming on our waste? It seems sort of logical in an alien sort of way. Anyway, over 20 years later, when seeing her again, it was a small town, after the hellos, I asked her if she remembered that night. Her face went very serious, and her demeanour changed, and she gave me a serious look before recounting the event, and it had clearly left a big impression on a no-nonsense lass, as it did the gulls, no doubt. I wonder if it was a probe, after all, and whether anybody else has seen similar or unusual activity around landfills. I will never know, says Ian. Well, thank you for that one, Ian. What do we think about this one, then? Voltsketeers, I think that's what we're calling ourselves. And we, Baby with a Laser has a similar experience with a pink tubular light which came down, goodness me, and circled around you before shooting back into the sky. Baby with a Laser, you know what to do. We need to know this story. Goodness, and that sounds similar. And on Ian's point about what about unusual activity around landfills and signing off with I will never know, well, you might well find out, because often people have had similar experiences. So chat, let's see if anybody else out there knows about landfill stuff. Yes, Baby with a Laser, send me the details. That'd be wonderful. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read that out, actually. And for everyone else here, and John's shown you how to do it nice and easy, here is how to take part in the show. To take part in tonight's show, there are a number of options. You can send a message on WhatsApp, giving a brief outline of what it is you want to discuss, and then wait for my call back. Alternatively, for UK residents, you can call direct on 0141 673 3743 to join the call queue and get through to the live show. And for listeners in the US, you can also call on 929 673 3743. That's 929 Mr. Eerie. That's a New York City number. And if you're too shy to call, then you can always email eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story or your theory, whatever it is you want to talk about, and I can read it out for you on air and state. Remember, this is your show, and I am waiting for your call. Strange encounters, theories about the paranormal, questions about some of the cases I've covered on the channel, whatever it is, as long as it's weird. I want to hear it. Call now to be on Eerie's Vault Live. YouTube show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive. And at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs, your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com, and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. be part of it. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eeries Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence, original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the Vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the Vault. Got an encounter story that you want to share? Ever seen a UFO or a ghost? Are you a time traveler? Or a non-human humanoid? Or maybe you've just got an opinion about a known encounter that you would like to share. Whichever it may be, simply send a WhatsApp message to 07903 775 899 to enter the callback queue. That's 07903 775 899. Just give me a brief outline of what you want to say and a name that you'd like me to use on air, and then stay ready for my callback. And we're back. Gosh, that was quite a long break, wasn't it? Sorry about that. We have a caller on the line. Caller, thank you ever so much for holding the line for almost 8 minutes. I do apologise.
Oh, it's fine, Eerie. It's fine.
Oh, it's yourself. It's Fleur.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, Eerie. How is yourself?
Very good. I'm halfway down a cup of tea. Tonight's cup has a B on it, so there we go.
Oh. Mine is flower pattern at the moment. Oh dear. I've actually been to see Demon Slayer. I went to see that and I'm like, oh, yes.
Oh, very good. You enjoyed it then? Good.
Oh, so good.
Very good. I've not seen it, but and I won't get time to either. I know that.
Oh, well, if it comes out on DVD or whatever you can, it's.
Of course, yes. So, what bees are nice, says Stephen, by the way. Yes, they are. And they're even nicer when it's a cup with tea in it. So, Fleur, what have you got for us this evening?
Well, while we're on the subject of UFOs, I do have what I think is UFO that I saw in about 2022.
Okay.
If I could tell that story.
Of course.
So I used to do a lot of work outside for my job, so I'd have to go from one property to another. And I'd been walking along the street. It had been a really cold, really miserable, rainy day. And I just looked up at the sky and gone, oh, isn't it dark? And I noticed a strange orange orb in the sky. And I'm like, oh, that's odd. Because I have flight radar, so I check it out. I just check things out. If it looks odd in the sky, flight radar is your best bet to see what that is.
Mm.
So I went onto flight radar, and I'm scanning the area where I live, and I could not see what this thing was because it wasn't coming up on the radar. So I thought, well, it could be a drone. So I thought nothing of it, and I went about my work to the next person. And I thought, well, if it's there when I come out, I'll try and video this darn thing. Because, if it is there.
Mm.
So I spent about half an hour doing the job that I needed to do. And when I came out, this thing was still there. Like I said, it wasn't a drone. I know it wasn't a drone because I've seen how drones work. It was a giant orange orb just in the sky, floating in the sky, not like a balloon, not like a drone. It was just floating there. And it was, again, I tried to get it into the frame to take a video of it, but it just didn't work because I couldn't zoom in far enough. And I watched it for about 20 odd minutes, going from one place to the other, just watching this thing just move silently. Again, no sound, no nothing. It was just a giant orange ball. And I'm like, I'm going to have to try and video this thing. So I tried to go onto zoom mode on my phone, tried to get this thing in, but it just wouldn't work. It was just all blurred. So I'm not sure what the height of it would have been either. But it was moving really irregularly. If it had been a drone, we all know how drones move, but this was not moving. This hadn't moved for nearly, I'd say, an hour or so.
Oh, so it was just sort of hanging there then?
Yep, hanging there. Just literally hanging there. And I was like, well, it could have been a balloon, the hot air balloons you get, but we all know how hot air balloons look in the sky. This was not a hot air balloon. So again, I was like, I'm going to check flight radar again, see if it comes up, and nothing. No, there was no signal coming from it, nothing. So I was, again, I'm going, well, this thing's weird. This thing hasn't shifted from the same spot for an hour. I'm going to keep an eye on it for the rest of the night. So I would do my work, come out, take a look at it, and I noticed that it began to slowly move towards what would be the horizon. It sped up, and then next thing I know, it just disappears, just flash, gone. So I'm just literally staring, going, what the hell is that? So obviously, I'm like, well, nothing. I couldn't get the recording. I couldn't explain what it was. So I went in. I went home, and I spoke to my dad on the phone, and I said, Dad, have you seen that orange thing in the sky? And he said, you mean that giant orange orb thing in the sky?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that
said,
thing, yes.
And he said, yeah. He said, I've seen that for several nights. That has been hanging around. I'm like, so you've seen it too? He's like, yeah, it's been hanging around for several nights. It just disappears by itself. And honestly, this is the first time I'd ever seen it. So I'm like, I'm going to check if I see it the next night. And I didn't. I kept waiting, checking flight radar to see if this thing turned up. It didn't turn up. I'm like, what the hell did I just see? Some kind of weird supersonic aircraft, some kind of weird drone that's faster than anything.
Yeah, so what's this flight radar? What is this? Is it an app or something that you can look at?
Flight radar's an app which allows you to track different planes. When my sister used to go abroad, we used to track her planes to make sure they landed safe.
Oh, right. So you can tell from that there's nothing, there shouldn't be anything flying over that area, right?
Yes, I would recommend if you do see something that you can't place it, you can check flight radar to see if it is something. Again, this thing was not giving any call signal. There was nothing. And obviously, I don't think any other aircraft were aware of it because there were aircraft going across from it, below it. They didn't seem to be veering off in any other direction. I don't think they were acknowledging it. Either they couldn't see it or they just were not responding to it. But obviously, I could see it with my with the naked eye. I could see it.
When it accelerated away, did it change shape at all?
It looked like, when you kick a football?
Yeah.
And it just suddenly speeds up. It was though somebody kicked a football and that thing just disappeared into the horizon. And again, it wouldn't have, nothing moves that fast. It was just like somebody had kicked a ball and it just disappeared. And obviously with it being wet, rainy, it's dark. I think it was maybe an October, November night. When you see things like that, you're like, oh, didn't realise that was happening.
Yes.
And like I said, my dad said, yeah, I've seen something weird like that. He said, I've been watching it with a pair of binoculars. And he said, I couldn't make it. He said, I was using, not strong, but really good binoculars. And he couldn't make out what it was. He said it's been happening for maybe a couple of nights or so.
Oh, so it was repeated. That's unusual, isn't it? Yeah. Is there anything military or industrial in that area that it might have been interested in? Or, in fact, any quarries or, landfill tips or anything like that?
If I'm correct, the area that I used to live in the area was quite industrialized, and they did produce, I believe, some kind of steel. They were producing some kind of steel. I'm not incredibly sure, but like I said, it was seeing this thing. I'm just like, well, you're not showing up on flight radar. You look weird. You're quite weirdly hanging there because drones don't just hang there. They sort of have like a wobble, don't they? This thing was just spherical,
sort of suspended. Still. Yeah, a couple of the recent cases I've done on the channel were, I think, what was it? The Frogmen of Averley potentially was a orange sphere, and in fact, I think the Ripperston farm. No, not Ripperston. The lady with the headscarf on. Gosh, Jessie Rustenberg. I think her sighting was of an orange spherical object as well. Very odd indeed. Very odd.
I obviously, when you mention quarries and such, I do know that. I will say the area that it was around, there have been some odd things happen in the area.
Okay.
There have been some sightings of UFOs in that particular area. There's one again, I'm not going to reveal where I live, but there is one that's kind of famous. I've seen videos on it before. And I think it may have been something to do with that. There's always some kind of odd thing happening around there. But again, because I only saw it once that night and didn't see it again, I'm like, well, who knows what that is? Because again, when I tried to zoom in on it, it was just far high up, and when you tried to zoom the camera in, it just blurred the image.
Yeah, and it's difficult to keep still when you're zoomed in, isn't it? Every tiny little movement is like an enormous blur on the object, yeah.
And obviously when I tried to move around, the camera would catch like different houses. It would catch even like cars moving. Because again, I thought it was just, I was like, I wonder if it's just a car, a really bright car in the distance. Because you sometimes see ambulance lights.
Yeah, yeah, on a hill somewhere. Yeah, in the distance. Mm.
And then I'm like, but why? But I couldn't see anything up there, because obviously I know the area pretty well. I'm like, well, it's not on a hill. It's not a helicopter. So I was like, well, maybe it's the helicopter for the. I know some hospitals have helipads, but why would why would a helicopter?
And the acceleration as well, that incredible acceleration. We've got a few people in the chat saying that they've seen similar things, and it does resonate with some previous cases that I've mentioned, and it's actually reminiscent of the next encounter that I'm going to read on email. You seem to have a habit of being able to do this.
Honestly, Eerie, I just don't. I don't know what you're going to do, so I don't know.
You seem to have a knack. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to have a knack. I really don't know. When it comes to UFOs, I thought, well, that sounds like that scary thing. Again, it didn't. I wasn't scared of it. I was just like, ooh.
Just wondering what on earth it is. Yeah, it's a very strange one, Fleur, I have to admit. Thank you very much for the call. And you'll see what I mean about how it links into this next thing in a moment. So thank you very much, Fleur. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Eerie. And you have a good day.
Thank
Take care
you.
of yourself.
Cheerio.
And be careful. And Eerie, be careful of the wombles outside.
Oh yes, well, we must be careful of the wombles. No, and in this desolate, forested and oceanic area out here, the wombles can grow to unusual size. So I shall be very careful. Thank you, Fleur.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Thank you. Take care. Have a lovely day. Bye.
So plenty in the chat there saying I've seen similar. I would love to hear about those, please. I would love to hear them. Tony Worrell says, hi everyone, just discovered this live. Welcome to the show. And anybody else who's just joined. Buster's with us. Good to see you, Buster. And anyone else who may or may not have joined in the meantime. Yes, so here is one from our friend, John Mooner. Again. Okay. And John tells me it was the early hours of the morning and it was pitch black outside and I was watching the night sky for anything out of the ordinary. It was very cold, but there was no wind at all, so I patiently sat in my garden chair observing the sky, waiting for any anomalies to arise. Half an hour quickly went by without me really seeing anything, when all of a sudden I noticed some lights that were moving way off in the distance. The lights were quite high up in the sky. They were blinking on and off in an unusual manner, so I quickly took some photographs of them with my Nikon P900 camera before the mysterious lights stopped blinking and went off altogether, before they suddenly all came back on simultaneously. The lights were now brighter in intensity, and I was very excited at this point, as I knew it was something strange and out of the ordinary. I quickly began to zoom in on the lights to get a better look and to try to figure out what these anomalous lights could be. And once I had zoomed in, I could clearly see that the lights were attached to a structured craft that I could not identify as any type of known craft. The most shocking thing, though, was the fact that I could clearly see 3 alien creatures were sitting inside the craft. The first alien was sitting above the middle light and appeared to be looking down, working some kind of a control. The second alien that was to the left was looking in the direction of the first alien, as if it was supervising it, working the controls. The third alien that was off to the right was observing the town directly below. I was totally gobsmacked by what I was seeing. And then all of a sudden the first alien entity lifted its head and looked right in my direction, like it could somehow sense my gaze fixed upon it. I felt a cold unease as the other 2 entities also looked in my direction. And these alien entities were somehow aware of me watching them from my distant position in the safety of the back garden. And with that, all of the lights went out, one by one, on the structured craft, and it just faded away before it promptly disappeared. I was left very perplexed by what had happened, but also amazed by what I'd just witnessed and photographed. I had managed to capture the alien entities and their structured craft in several clear photographs. This was an incredible sighting, and I have the images to prove it. The photographs were taken at 3:44 a.m. on the 29th of January 2017 in Devon. All the best, John. I assume John listens to the show, but I have not emailed John back, actually. So, John, I must thank you for continuing to send these photographs and these tales in. As people will know, John often sends me attached photographs, and the photos won't really do justice, but I'll just show one. In fact, I'll save these to the desktop. Now, this is the point here now where I just waffle a little bit, and you can see how in one of these photos you'll see this orange spherical object that Fleur mentioned is very similar to one or more of these images. I'm just going to save them to the desktop. And see, I had intended this to be an audio-only broadcast. I hadn't really considered sharing my screen at any point. Let's transition to this one. And let's pop one of the images on screen. So what you're going to see is 2 images. I'll try and put them side by side for you so that you can see what we're talking about here. So the first image is there on screen. It's not a video, okay? It's an image, but this is the structured craft, apparently, with the different lights. Oops, just struck the microphone stand there. Sorry for that, if that went bang in your ear. With the lights on it. And now I'm going to add the second image, which is, I think, the light, and behind it you can see the 3 aliens, supposedly. So let's switch these around. There's your first one. Traveller's Journal, welcome to the show. Listening from Northampton, thank you for joining us. Here's the first picture, which is the lights on the craft, and this is a zoom in of the light at the bottom, and as the encounter said, there are no images showing. Let me resolve that quickly. There we go. There we go. So that one there is the second one. That was the first one. So this is the lights on the structured craft. Here we are. And this second image is supposedly the zoomed in with what I'm told are 3 alien beings, one directly above the light, one to the left, and one to the right. What do we make of those? Let's do that switch again. There's a transition to the craft and a transition to the zoom in. I feel like John's images and encounters really deserve their own episode, actually. I must respond to John and see what we can come up with between us. But for now, of course, don't forget everybody else. I want to hear from you. To take part in tonight's show, there are a number of options. You can send a message on WhatsApp, giving a brief outline of what it is you want to discuss, and then wait for my call back. Alternatively, for UK residents, you can call direct on 0141 673 3743 to join the call queue and get through to the live show. And for listeners in the US, you can also call on 929 673 3743. That's 929 Mr. Eerie. That's a New York City number. And if you're too shy to call, then you can always email eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story or your theory, whatever it is you want to talk about, and I can read it out for you on air instead. Remember, this is your show, and I am waiting for your call. Strange encounters, theories about the paranormal, questions about some of the cases I've covered on the channel, whatever it is, as long as it's weird, I want to hear it. Call now to be on Eerie's Vault Live. Who want to go deeper? There is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence. Original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the Vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the Vault. This is Eerie's Vault Live, and I am your host, Leon Eerie, and this is your #1 stream for the weird, the strange, and the unexplained. That's right, the unexplained. The unexplained, apparently. That's what I said. We've got an email here from another John who has sent me a screenshot of a Facebook page in which another John has posted a tale. This is the evening of John's, it would seem. So, a month ago, says John, via John, a month ago I took possession of my allotment after being on a waiting list for 3 years. I've been down a few times now, doing a bit of weeding, etc., and trying to get it ready for planting. The other night at dusk, I was packing my things away in the shed when I saw an elderly man smoking a pipe, leaning on my fence. I waved to him and shouted, "Good evening." I went into the shed, and when I came out, the gentleman had gone, and I thought no more about it. 2 days later, I had to go down to the allotments to get some paperwork from the little office part, and when I was in there, I was looking at a collection of photographs that were on the office wall, and I saw the man with the pipe that I'd spoken to the other night. "I've seen him," I said to the man behind the desk. "The other night he was leaning on my fence." And he said, "Well, that's George. He had your allotment before you, but it couldn't have been him, son. He passed away 6 months ago." So that's from John, via John, but at least the spirit in that one was called George and not John, because that would have been incredibly confusing, wouldn't it? I would imagine. It certainly would. Plenty happening in the chat over here. James Glass even says, "I've been face to face with an orb. It was the size of a plum and looked like a pearl. I was in my bed thinking about getting up, and it came out of my bedroom wall. I knew what I was. It came out of the bedroom wall. Goodness me. I said to the orb, 'Who are you then?' And it made a U-shaped turn and went back into the wall, so I thought I'd better get up. Goodness me." You could just get an alarm clock, you know. That would help as well. I don't want to see things like that, personally, at all. I do not. Jamie, who says, "Good evening, Liam. I hope you are well. I'm currently away for the weekend with a terrible phone signal. But I thought I'd ask you and your listeners, what do we think of the Black Monk of Pontefract? The location has been much hyped, but is there any real hard evidence of a haunting? The venue is now available for hire to paranormal investigation teams, and I'm very, very skeptical of such situations. What do people think? And hello to all of the regulars." Well, let's throw that open to the chat, and in fact, the callers. So if you've got an opinion on that, is it East Drive, I believe? That's the Black Monk of Pontefract poltergeist case. I'd like to hear your take on that, if you have an opinion on it. And if you're an intrepid investigator, you could jump on Google right now and take a look at what it is. So there you go. You can call in about that one if you want. Theme Queen UK says Ponty crap. There you go. I almost said that, but not quite. I almost said it. We almost got taken off air because of my language, didn't we? Yes. I'm not sure about the Pontefract thing. I saw the film. There was a film, wasn't there, recently about it, but yeah. It's not a subject I like to dwell on too much, really. Not really my cup of tea. The very, very spooky stuff like that. And I know that sounds odd coming from a spooky channel, as it were. But there are some things I don't like to pry into. However, if you have an opinion on that one, I would like to hear your take, and so would Jamie as well, by the way. Now, we've reached an unusual point in the show in that, I've run out of emails completely. All the messages in my WhatsApp have disappeared, and I'm going to run out of things to say, which is not good. Is it really? So I've read that from John. Let's put that into the folder. Let's think about synchronicity then for a moment. And please feel free to interrupt me at any point during this. What happens if I switch to that screen there? There we go. So that screen there still has the phone numbers on it and the emails. And it will ring for me whilst I'm on that screen. But let's talk about synchronicity, right? So it's if you've ever had something happen to you that it just doesn't line up, if you know what I mean. And I came across this term synchronicity. Oh gosh, I forget the name of the documentary now, but I was really I was really into the Hopkinsville, or the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins story. I don't know if you're aware of that one. Jan Goodwin says, Eerie, have you looked at the Borley Rectory, or is that not among your interests? Do you know, now and then it comes up as a recommendation, as a topic, if you know what I mean. You know, in your Google News feeds and things like that, it'll pop Borley Rectory up now. Apparently, the most haunted place in Britain, of which several places can make that claim, can't they? I think I'm less into the ghost aspect and much more into. I'm getting into the UFO stuff more lately, and in fact, getting quite a few messages off other people in the field with opinions about my research and pointers and corrections and all that kind of thing. But certainly, it's for me, it's creatures for me. It's cryptids. Farston's finest call about that blooming Ruby Valley thing. Goodness me, that was fabulous. So that's my wheelhouse, really. And the ghosty stuff, it has to be something really odd to get my attention, I think. And to me, the Borley Rectory is pretty sort of, I don't know, it feels like it's been done a lot, if you know what I mean. But you could convince me otherwise, Jan, if you want. You could call in if you like, or you can email. And if you've got something of interest about Borley Rectory, certainly I'd like to hear it. But it's not something I've explored because it just feels like, you see, the thing is, as a YouTube person, you're in a constant battle with yourself to pick a good subject for the next video. There's always a next video. I mean, as soon as that one went out today about the UFOs in the ocean, and that's one I've been writing that piece for a few weeks at least, and but then it's gone and you move on to the next thing, right? And to me, I have a toss-up between, right, well, it might be interesting to me, but what's going to be interesting to the other people out there who are watching the videos? And you find yourself in this middle ground of, well, you know, and Borley Rectory is an example because, you know, there's plenty there to talk about, but you think it might not go as well as this giant guy in a silver suit in Wales story. So you're kind of guided, or I find now, I'm guided by what I think will get good attention, let's say. And that includes picking up stories that don't get covered as much, if you know what I mean. So maybe there's mileage in Borley Rectory. Isn't that where isn't there a photograph or a CCTV of a monk closing a fire escape door or something? Where's that? Was that Borley Rectory? I think it might have been, actually. WM Steadbot says, one of the reasons I subscribe to you is because you cover the more granular stories, the small stories that get ignored by other channels because they're not sensational enough. You see, I love doing that, and I really enjoy finding, and I'll tell you what surprises me. So I enjoy finding the stories that I think, gosh, no, but I've never heard of that. I've never, ever heard of that thing. That jelly entities of McKinleth, in Wales, and what was the other one? The Kojak-headed entities. And I love pouring through all those old UFO journals to find something. But I'm always amazed that somebody's already heard about it. Somebody's already heard about it, even though I think that nobody's ever heard of that one. Yeah, it's a real journey, let's say. A real journey. Hampton Court, that was the one. That was it, Paul. Yes, that was the one with the supposed CCTV of the monk closing the door. Eric says, hello, Eerie. I've got a short, minor, spooky thing that happened to me years ago. You have? Well, the phone number is scrolling slowly across the screen there. It's 0141 673 3743. That's 0141 Mr. Eerie. By the way, if you spell it out on your phone pad, I still think that's really, really funny. I don't know if anybody else does. But yes, you can call in and you can tell us about your minor spooky thing, if you like. Yes, so as a YouTubey person, that's where I lie on Borley Rectory, I think. Oh, and apparently it's long gone. So it shows you how much I know about it, you see. I assumed it was still standing. So even less for me to go and have a look at there, I think. However, back to synchronicity. And we were talking about the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins, which I don't know if any of you are aware of. And I might cover it on the channel, actually, as well. In fact, I'm doing an American case tomorrow. I don't know if you've heard of the Enfield horror. So I was looking at the Enfield poltergeist, again, sort of weighing it up as, should I cover this or not? Because it's been done to death. And then this other Enfield thing popped up, which is the Enfield horror, a three-legged grey alien creature that, appeared in Illinois at some point. So that's coming out tomorrow. And I might cover the Hopkinsville goblins. And the thing about that Hopkinsville goblins is that there's a big cave where this case happened. So this was some diminutive sort of alien-like creatures that terrorized, let's say, a farmstead or a homestead in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. And the beings were shot at. When bullets hit them, they made a sound like they were made of metal. Apparently they were in and out of a well. I'm not doing the story justice, but there's a big cave there. And, of course, caves equals underground systems and this, that, and the other. So it looked like there was some mileage in investigating the story. And I watched this documentary that went absolutely nowhere. It went nowhere. But they kept saying synchronicity. Oh, this is a synchronicity. That's a synchronicity. I'd never heard of it before. And they used the phrase to death on there. But it's kind of, it's things that line up, but they shouldn't, you know. We're not even talking in a dramatic way, are we? It's not like a ghost flying through your kitchen or flares orange glowing objects in the sky, but it's smaller things, I think, you know, in reality. I think they misused the synchronicity phrase on that documentary. It's like you look at your phone at 3:33 a.m. or something like that, or you turn the radio on and it says the exact word you were thinking, you know. Pickles, there you go. If anybody was thinking pickles, there's your synchronicity. You pick up a book you haven't touched in like 10 years and you open it at random and there it is, the thing you were just reading about online. It's little things like that. And I don't think, you know, it's coincidence all the time. I mean, brains love patterns, right? We do look for meanings, we look for patterns, and I get that. But when it happens over and over and over, then I don't think that's randomness. It feels almost like some kind of feedback, if you know what I mean. Now, I've been on this planet a fairly long time, and long enough to say this with a straight face, and that is when you dig deep enough into high strangeness, it really does begin to push back. And lots of people will, say, oh, be careful of this, be careful of that. But I really would urge people to be careful. Not that you're going to get possessed next week if you're not careful, but there's an effect on your mental state that you've got to guard yourself against when you start to dig into these sorts of things. And, there are strange people attracted to this area of life, as it were. So that's what I mean when you say it supposedly pushes back at you. Now, it's subtle at first. It can be just a phrase that repeats, or a sound that you hear, or a weird dream that you keep having, all that kind of thing. And the deeper you go, you will start to find clusters of things. And here's where you've got to use your discretion and your very keen judgment. Just as John earlier had a sighting of something, he still was able to not dive headfirst into, I've just seen a UFO. And it's that dive you've got to be careful of, because synchronicities can mount up, and enough of them can be a pattern. But you can also force yourself to see patterns if you really want to see them hard enough. And I think that's the part you've got to be really careful of, because the clustering, the avalanche of odd little things that by themselves mean nothing, but together, if you put enough of them together, you can sometimes convince yourself that it's a thing, but sometimes it also is a thing. And how do you teach yourself to tell the difference? That's what I don't understand. It's telling the difference between what is a synchronicity in terms of coincidental, perhaps premonitory sort of thing. I mean, sometimes you can read something in a book and you've been thinking it all day, or sometimes when you're listening to music on repeat, okay, and on shuffle. I listen to music a lot all the time, and when you listen to it on shuffle, sometimes one song will end and you'll just start singing the next one, and then there it is, it comes on, and you think, oh goodness me, that's unusual. I knew that was going to come on next, those kind of things. So there's a sort of premonitory element to it, I think, as well as a coincidence element. For example, let's say a chap called Mike emails me. He's been reading up on missing time cases, right? Classic UFO stuff, watches that stop and hours that get lost and all that sort of thing. And he goes out to the local woods. He's not even looking for anything. He just wants a walk, to clear his head. He takes his dog, and the dog stops dead at a fork in the path, and its hackles are up. And in that moment, he says, it feels like a kind of vibration to him too, like the air is too still. Suddenly the dog bolts off full sprint and disappears, and he runs after it, and his heart is pounding, and he's screaming at the dog, and maybe after a minute, maybe two, he finds the dog standing perfectly still, eyes wide, like it's been reset or something. He gets home, the kitchen clock says 4:10, his watch says 3:05, and his phone says 4:09. He shrugs it off. He says maybe the battery's dying, maybe he's bumped the settings or something. Except then 2 days later, he's listening to a podcast, one he's downloaded randomly, and the guest says time doesn't break in big ways, it breaks into small chunks. Watches run wrong before the clocks go wrong, and the guy's blood runs cold. Now, that story by itself, well, it's weird, isn't it? But then, if I get 3 more emails, all unrelated from different parts of the UK, almost saying the same thing, well, does that mean I'm a part of something that's now happening? Or do I now have to force myself to make the decision of this is not a thing to be turned into a big deal? I know I'm kind of waffling on this topic, but it's a fine line between being interested and aware and being consumed by this kind of thing, if you know what I mean. We have an email from Harry here who said, would it be an idea if people recorded their audio stories at home and then sent them to you on audio file? You could check that they were transmissible, and if so, play them on the live show. It might save your voice. Just an idea. It's a very good idea, Harry. It is. And yes, I would welcome that. Absolutely. I would suggest sending them on email if you would like to do that. Rather than the WhatsApp, because I've got that disappearing message thing switched on. So sometimes, you know, like if you send me a message tomorrow, it'll be gone before the next time I look at it. So you can indeed do that. That's a very, very good idea, actually. John Mooner is in the chat with us. So, Mr. John, another John here, says, check your emails, Eerie. I've sent you some more. And indeed, you have. Gosh, more photographs here. And I like to read these first before I... John, I'm gonna save those for the next show so that I've at least got something locked and loaded before we go. I see UFOs all the time, says John. And here in Devon, it's very strange. John, I would love for you to have an episode of your own for the show. I'd like you to be a guest interviewee, actually. You could send me some stuff beforehand. I can tee up the images so we can see them on the screen, etc. And you can actually tell us about it in your own words, which I would love to do. I would love to do. Traveller's Journal says, no. Either call in directly or I want to hear Eerie reading the emails and stories because I enjoy Eerie's voice. That's very nice. Very nice of you, isn't it? Yes. Very nice of you indeed. So yes, John, I'm going to keep hold of those for next week so that I have something ready and I don't have to waffle about synchronicity at all, which I, of course, was doing, wasn't I, there? Yes, we're at the end of the show anyway, so it looks like there's more than a couple of minutes worth there to talk about. I want to thank everybody again for being here and spending your Friday evening with me in the depths of the vault up here in the classified location where I am. And for your calls. Thank you, John. Thank you, Fleur, for your calls. And thanks everybody who has emailed in with a story as well. Excellent stuff on some of those. And of course, keep your eye out for the videos. So if you haven't seen this evening's video, it's about UAPs and the ocean. And it's a bit of a theoretical sort of discussion on, is the ocean a source of UFOs, or is it simply a transitioning medium for them to arrive in our planet? So if you haven't seen that one, check it out. And tomorrow there will be a video about this Enfield creature that I've stumbled upon. It's really, really interesting. I really enjoyed finding out about it, actually. So yes, that's coming up on Eerie's Vault. Of course, next week, there will be another live show. I am working on getting some guests in the pipeline as well. John Mooner, that is. I shall email you back with sort of an invite, if you like, and we can set a time up. I do have a couple of guests in the pipeline who cannot make it onto the live because of time differences across different countries. So I will be recording some guest segments and possibly playing them on the live show then. Again, that'll save my voice as well, won't it? But thank you, everybody. Thank you ever so much. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Grandpa. That's right. And I will see you, or at least speak to you, in the next Eerie's Vault live. Thank you very much, everybody. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence. Original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the Vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the Vault.